The brave little squirrel.
A lush, vibrant forest, birds chirp, the sun shines, and the river flows gently. We see a young squirrel, timid and small, standing at the edge of a riverbank, staring nervously at the rushing water. Young squirrels, I can't do it, I'll drown for sure. A cozy nest, high in a tree. Inside, the squirrel's family is gathered, looking worried. The shells are empty and their stomachs rumble, mumble. Mother squirrels, we need food. The winter is coming and our supplies are gone. Father squirrels, the only food left is across the river. Young squirrels, but it's so dangerous. Mother squirrels, sometimes we have to face our fears to protect those we love. The young squirrel takes a deep breath, his tiny paws shaking. He looks around and spots a fallen log, half submerged in the water. Young squirrels, I can do this for my family. The young squirrel cautiously steps onto the log. He wobbles but maintains his balance. Midway across, the log shifts slightly and he freezes, summoning all his courage. He takes one step after another until he reaches the other side. The young squirrel, panting and wide-eyed, finds an abundance of food, nuts, berries, and seeds. Young squirrels, I did it. The young squirrel returns, a hero with his cheeks and paws full of food. His family rushes out to greet him. Mother squirrel, you did it, we're so proud of you. Father squirrel, you were very brave. Sometimes taking risks is necessary for survival. Courage can overcome the greatest fears.
The golden apple. Ibadat Rahman, a wise old farmer with a kind face and twinkling eyes, strolls through his orchard, examining the apples. His attention is caught by a golden apple shimmering among the red and green ones. Ibadat Rahman carefully plucks the golden apple and examines it with curiosity. Villagers gather in the square, their faces filled with anticipation. Ibadat Rahman stands in the center, holding the golden apple high.
Villagers, I have found a golden apple in my orchard. I will give this apple to the person who can tell me the most valuable lesson they have learned in life.
A wealthy merchant steps forward confidently.
The most valuable lesson I've learned is that wealth brings happiness.
Ibadat Rahman listens, nods thoughtfully, but then shakes his head.
Thank you, but that is not the lesson I'm seeking.
The merchant steps aside, looking disappointed. Next, a young scholar approaches.
Knowledge is the greatest treasure one can possess.
Ibadat Rahman considers this, but remains unsatisfied.
A wise lesson, but not the one I seek. One by one, villagers share their lessons. Courage, perseverance, ambition. Ibadat Rahman listens to each but shakes his head every time.
The crowd is thinning. Amina, a poor widow known for her kindness, hesitantly steps forward. She is dressed modestly, her face gentle and serene.
The most valuable lesson I've learned is that true happiness comes from helping others. When we share our blessings, we create a better world for everyone.
Ibadat Rahman's eyes light up. He smiles broadly and steps forward, holding the golden apple out to Amina.
You have spoken the truth, Amina. This apple is yours.
The crowd applauds, and Amina's eyes fill with tears of gratitude. Harun places the apple in her hands. Ibadat Rahman addresses the crowd.
Let this apple remind us all that the greatest treasure in life is the love and care we give to others.
The villagers nod in agreement, moved by Amina's words. Villagers help each other with daily tasks. Children share their toys and food. The village becomes a happier, more harmonious place. The orchard is more bountiful than ever. Ibadat Rahman and Amina walk among the trees, smiling and chatting.
Thank you, Amina. You've reminded us of what truly matters.
It's a lesson we should never forget.
The village is peaceful under the moonlit sky. True happiness and fulfillment come from helping others and sharing our blessings. Acts of kindness and generosity create a better world for everyone. The honest woodcutter. Ibadat, a humble woodcutter in his, chops wood near a river. He swings his old, worn-out axe.
Another day, another bundle of wood.
Suddenly, his axe slips from his hands and falls into the river. He looks distressed.
Oh no, my axe.
He sits by the riverbank, praying.
Please, help me. I need that axe to earn my living.
The water shimmers, and a beautiful fairy appears, holding a golden axe.
Is this your axe?
Ibadat shakes his head.
No, that's not my axe. Mine was old and made of iron.
The fairy dives back into the river and emerges with a silver axe.
Is this your axe?
Ibadat shakes his head again.
No, that's not mine either.
The fairy dives again and returns with Ibadat's old iron axe.
Is this your axe?
Ibadat's face lights up.
Yes, that's my axe. Thank you.
The fairy smiles.
You are honest. I will give you all 3 axes as a reward.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The fairy disappears. Ibadat heads back to the village with all 3 axes. Villagers gather around Ibadat, amazed.
Ibadat, where did you get those axes?
The fairy of the river rewarded me for my honesty.
The villagers nod, inspired.
Honesty truly is the best policy.
It is. Let's all strive to be honest and hardworking.
The village thrives with honest and hardworking people, living in harmony and prosperity. Ibadat continues to work hard, always remembering the value of honesty. The last apple. In a quaint village, there lived a wise old woman named Mira, known for her fairness and wisdom. Mira, a kind-faced elderly woman, stands outside her charming cottage, smiling warmly at passers-by. Children run around, playing and laughing. One day, a mysterious traveler named Kai arrived. Kai, a rugged yet gentle-looking traveler, enters the square, his eyes scanning the surroundings. He spots the last apple on the oak tree.
The perfect gift for my starving sister.
Kai approaches the tree, but just as he reaches for the apple, a young boy named Tommy grabs it first.
Hey, that's mine.
I need it for my sick mother.
A crowd gathers, whispering and pointing.
Who will decide who gets the apple?
Let's call Mira.
Mira arrives, calm and thoughtful. She looks at Kai and Tommy, then at the crowd.
Who truly needs this apple more?
My sister is starving. This apple could save her.
My mother is very ill. This apple is her only hope.
Mira ponders, then smiles knowingly.
Let us split the apple.
The crowd murmurs in surprise.
Each of you shall take half, and let us see what kindness it brings.
Mira cuts the apple in half. Kai takes his half and hands it to Tommy.
Your mother needs it more. I'll find another way for my sister.
Tommy, eyes filled with gratitude, takes both halves and hands one back to Kai.
We can share. Let both our loved ones be helped.
The crowd cheers, inspired by their kindness. In their selflessness, they found a greater reward than the apple itself. The sun sets, casting a golden glow over the village. Kai and Tommy walk away, friends now, each holding half an apple. In a world where kindness and fairness prevail, everyone finds their share of happiness. Game of Fate. Sunlight streams through large glass doors. Ibadat, a young man, sits at a massive desk, looking pensive. Managing the family business was mandatory for Ibadat, though his mind always leaned toward adventure and discovering something new. Ibadat looks up from a stack of papers, a thoughtful expression on his face. One day, Ibadat learned that his parents had bought a piece of land in a small village where they now wanted to build a warehouse. Ibadat talks to his parents, determination in his eyes.
I'll go to the village myself and take charge of the project.
Ibadat steps out of a car, looking around at the peaceful village. Upon reaching the village, Ibadat found that life there was very different from the city. Villagers greet Ibadat warmly. He smiles and shakes hands. Life moved at a slower pace here, and people were more sincere and trusting. Ibadat meets Arpita, a local school teacher.
Hi, I'm Arpita. Welcome to our village.
Ibadat developed good relationships with the villagers, especially with a girl named Arpita. Ibadat and Arpita walked together, talking and laughing. The friendship between Ibadat and Arpita gradually turned into love. Arpita shows Ibadat the classroom and discusses the villagers' challenges.
These are the problems we face. How can we help?
Ibadat realized that he would find more satisfaction working on the village's development. Ibadat receives a phone call, looking shocked. One day, Ibadat learned that his father's business was facing a significant financial crisis. Ibadat hurriedly packs his bags, saying goodbye to Arpita.
I have to go back to the city. My father's business needs me.
Ibadat arrives home to find his father seriously ill. Ibadat sits by his father's bedside, taking over the responsibilities of the business. A year later, Ibadat's father is better, and the business is stable. Ibadat looks at a picture of the village. Ibadat returns to the village, running to find Arpita. Ibadat and Arpita present plans for a school, hospital, and agricultural center to the villagers. Construction is underway. Villagers work together, smiling. The village began to walk the path of progress. Ibadat and Arpita stand hand in hand, watching the children play. It was Ibadat and Arpita's love and joint efforts that changed the lives of the villagers. Ibadat and Arpita receive a round of applause from the villagers. The game of fate added a new chapter to their lives, where they created their destiny. Ibadat and Arpita walk into the sunset, hand in hand. In this way, Ibadat and Arpita prove that with love, trust, and hard work, it is possible to win the game of fate. Incomplete knowledge. In a forest where every creature had its role, there lived a fox named Felix. Felix was clever, but his impatience often led him astray. Felix overhears a group of animals talking excitedly about a magical fruit.
They say the fruit grants immense knowledge to anyone who eats it.
Felix's eyes widen with interest. He steps forward, addressing the group.
Where can I find this magical fruit?
It grows on an ancient tree, deep in the forest. But be careful, Felix. It's not easy to find.
Felix ventures deeper into the forest, determination in his eyes. He comes across Olivier, an old, wise owl perched on a branch.
Where are you off to in such a hurry, Felix?
I'm going to find the magical fruit that grants knowledge. Soon, I'll be the wisest animal in the forest.
Oliver looks at Felix with a mixture of concern and wisdom. Knowledge is powerful, Felix. But remember, incomplete knowledge can be dangerous. Take your time to understand fully before acting.
Thank you, Oliver. But I know what I'm doing.
Felix arrives at the ancient tree, its branches heavy with glowing, magical fruit. Without hesitation, Felix grabs a fruit and takes a big bite. Felix's mind was flooded with information. He felt smarter, more knowledgeable, and more powerful than ever before. Felix stands before a group of animals, confidently giving advice.
I can help you all. Listen to my advice.
The animals follow Felix's instructions. However, chaos ensues. Nests fall apart, paths lead to danger, and the forest becomes a scene of confusion. Felix, looking ashamed and defeated, approaches Oliver.
I thought the fruit would make me wise, but it only caused trouble.
Oliver nods kindly, his eyes full of understanding.
The fruit gave you knowledge, Felix, but not the understanding to use it wisely. True wisdom comes from experience and a full understanding of what you know.
Felix learning from Oliver, observing and understanding the forest. Felix helping animals with thoughtful and wise advice. Felix learned a valuable lesson. He gained not just knowledge but the wisdom to use it correctly. The forest returned to harmony, and Felix was respected for his thoughtful wisdom. The forest is once again harmonious. Felix, now older and wiser, walks through the forest, respected by all the animals. And so, the animals learned to value not just what they knew, but how well they understood it. For incomplete knowledge can indeed be harmful. Rise together. Once upon a time, the sun rises over a small, tight-knit town. Birds chirp, and the distant hum of a new day begins. We see Lucy, a hard-working single mother, loading boxes into the back of her old car. Her daughter, Sophie, watches from the front porch, looking anxious.
Are you sure you can handle another job, Mom? You're already working so much. It's not about handling it, Soph. It's about doing what needs to be done. You have dreams, and I'm going to make sure nothing stands in your way.
Lucy walks over and squeezes Sophie's hand. Sophie's eyes soften with a mixture of admiration and concern.
You're going to be the first in this family to go to college. That's something worth fighting for.
Sophie nods, a spark of determination growing in her eyes. Sophie walks down the school hallway, her backpack slung over one shoulder. She's deep in thought. In class, she overhears two students whispering, laughing at her worn-out shoes.
She's still wearing those? Guess some people can't afford new ones.
Sophie clenches her fists, fighting back the urge to respond. She lowers her head, but her eyes are full of resolve. She takes out her notebook, flipping to pages filled with college applications, scholarships, and motivational quotes.
You're not defined by where you come from. You're defined by where you're going.
Lucy finishes up a long shift as a waitress. Her feet ache, and her exhaustion is visible, but she forces a smile when she sees Sophie walk in. Sophie sits at the counter as Lucy pours coffee for a regular customer.
You shouldn't have to work this hard, Mom.
Lucy leans against the counter, wiping her brow with the back of her hand.
It's not forever. It's just for now. Sometimes we have to push through the hard times to reach something better. But listen, it's not just about me doing my part. You've got to believe in yourself too, Sophie. Don't let anything, or anyone, dim your light.
Lucy looks into Sophie's eyes, the love and encouragement radiating from her gaze. Sophie nods, taking those words to heart. Sophie sits at her small desk, working on an essay late into the night. Papers are scattered everywhere. The glow of the desk lamp highlights her focus and determination. Suddenly, she stops and buries her face in her hands, overwhelmed. Lucy enters quietly, holding a cup of tea. She sets it down next to Sophie and gently strokes her back.
It's okay to feel tired. It's okay to feel like you can't go on. But remember, you're stronger than you think. And I'm right here, walking this road with you.
Sophie looks up, tears brimming in her eyes.
I'm scared, Mom. What if I'm not enough? What if I can't make it?
Lucy kneels down beside her, taking her hands.
You're more than enough. You've got heart, grit, and a fire that won't go out. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to keep moving forward. One step at a time. Success isn't about where you are, it's about how far you've come, and how far you're willing to go.
Sophie nods, taking a deep breath. She looks at her laptop with renewed determination and starts typing again. The mailbox creaks open as Sophie pulls out a large envelope with her name on it. She tears it open, eyes wide with anticipation. Her expression changes from nervousness to sheer joy. She runs inside, waving the acceptance letter.
Mom, I did it. I got in.
Lucy drops the dish she was washing and rushes over. They embrace tightly, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. They hold on for a long moment, their joy intertwined with all the hard work and sacrifices that led to this moment.
I knew you could do it. I've always known.
Sophie pulls back, wiping her tears but still smiling brightly.
I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. You believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself.
We did this together. We rise together.
Sophie stands in her new dorm room, looking out the window at the bustling campus below. Lucy lingers in the doorway, proud but bittersweet.
This is your new beginning. Go show them what you're made of. You've got a lot of dreams to chase.
Sophie turns to her mother, her eyes brimming with gratitude.
I'll make you proud, Mom. Just like you made me proud every day.
They share one last embrace before Lucy lets go and steps back, leaving Sophie standing tall and confident. As Lucy walks away, she glances back one more time, a tearful smile on her face. Sophie waves and then turns to face her future, ready to take it on. Lucy drives back home, alone in the car. Her eyes are full of pride as she passes familiar streets. She places a hand on her heart, knowing she's given Sophie everything she could. The tale of the broken promise. The sun is setting, casting a warm orange glow over a quaint village nestled between rolling hills. The chirping of crickets begins to fill the air as evening settles in. A modest home sits on the edge of the village, with a small porch overlooking a path leading into the woods. Rahim, mid-40s, a wise and gentle-looking man with streaks of gray in his hair. He is sitting on the porch, gazing at the horizon. His son, Ayan, 12, sits beside him, his face etched with frustration. He kicks at a loose pebble on the ground.
You seem troubled, Ayan. Something on your mind?
It's my friend, Zaid. He's mad at me because he says I broke a promise. but I didn't mean to.
Rahim looks at his son with understanding. He shifts in his chair, turning to face Ayan more directly.
I know how that feels. I made a similar mistake once. It's a story I haven't told you before, but I think now is the right time.
Ayan looks up curious. Rahim smiles faintly and begins his story.
When I was about your age, I had a best friend named Imran. We were inseparable, like brothers. We played together, studied together, and shared our dreams of the future. One day, Imran told me about a project he wanted to do. It was a school competition, and he needed my help. I promised him I would be there, that I would help him make it the best project anyone had ever seen.
Inside the library, Imran is excitedly explaining his project to Rahim. They're both sitting at a wooden table, surrounded by books. Rahim nods enthusiastically, making a pinky promise with Imran.
But as the days passed, I got distracted. Other friends invited me to play, to explore, and to try new things. I told myself there was still time to help Imran, that I would do it later. Before I knew it, the day of the project had arrived, and I hadn't done a thing.
Young Rahim stands outside the school, looking anxious. Children are gathered inside, presenting their projects. Rahim's eyes dart around, searching for Imran. He spots him inside, setting up a project by himself, looking disappointed. Rahim slowly enters the classroom. Imran looks up, his face filled with a mix of hurt and frustration. The project is incomplete, and other students are already showing their finished work. Rahim approaches hesitantly.
You didn't come. You promised.
Rahim opens his mouth to speak, but no words come out. Imran shakes his head, turning back to his project, his trust in Rahim shattered.
I had let him down. Our friendship was never the same after that. I had broken his trust, and no matter how many times I apologized, the damage was done. Ayan, promises are powerful. They're not just words, they're commitments. When you make a promise, you're giving someone your word, your bond. Breaking a promise can break someone's trust in you. And trust, once lost, is very hard to regain.
Ayan looks up at his father, understanding dawning in his eyes.
I didn't think about it that way, Dad. I just got busy with other things. I didn't realize how important it was to Zaid.
Rahim nods, his expression kind.
It's not too late, son. You can make it right. Show him that you care about your promises, that you're someone he can rely on. That's how you rebuild trust.
I'll talk to him tomorrow. I'll do whatever it takes to make it up to him.
Rahim smiles, proud of his son's resolve.
That's the spirit. Remember, being a person of your word is one of the most important things you can be. It shapes your character and earns you respect.
The next morning, Ayan is seen running down the village streets, determination in his stride. He approaches Zaid's house, and with a deep breath, knocks on the door.
Life will present many challenges, Ayan. But if you approach them with honesty, integrity, and a commitment to your word, you'll find that you can overcome anything.
Always be happy. Once upon a time, a peaceful village nestled between rolling hills. Children play in the fields, and villagers go about their daily routines, smiling and greeting each other warmly. A young boy, Sam Tin, with a bright smile on his face, running down a dirt path with a small wooden cart.
Come on, everyone, let's race to the top of the hill.
Other children join him, laughing and running after Sam. Despite the uneven path and occasional stumbles, Sam's laughter never falters. The group reaches the top of the hill, breathless but happy. Later that day, Sam walks through the village square, humming a cheerful tune. He waves at an elderly man, Amir, gray 70, who is sitting on a bench, looking thoughtful.
Sam, my boy, come here for a moment.
Sam walks over to Mr. Gray, his smile as bright as ever.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gray. How are you today?
I'm well, Sam. But there's something I've been meaning to ask you.
Sure, what is it?
I've watched you grow up in this village, always with a smile on your face. No matter what happens, you always seem so happy. How do you do it, Sam? What's your secret?
It's no secret, Mr. Gray. My father taught me something very important when I was little. He said that happiness isn't about having everything you want or everything being perfect. It's about finding joy in the little things, every day, no matter what.
Mr. Gray nods, intrigued. He gestures for Sam to sit next to him on the bench.
But what about when things go wrong, Sam? When life gets tough?
When things go wrong, I remind myself that worrying won't change anything. My father always said, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. So, instead of focusing on what's going wrong, I look for the good. Sometimes it's hard to find, but it's always there if you look hard enough.
That's wise beyond your years, Sam. But how do you manage to stay so positive all the time?
It's a choice, Mr. Gray. I choose to be happy. Every day, I decide to find something to be grateful for. Whether it's the sunshine, a kind word, or even a challenge that makes me stronger. Happiness isn't something that just happens, it's something you make happen.
Mr. Gray is sitting alone at his dining table, a cup of tea in his hand. He looks out the window at the setting sun. The sky painted with shades of orange and pink. A slight smile appears on his face as he recalls Sam's words. Mr. Gray is in bed, staring at the ceiling. He takes a deep breath and closes his eyes, repeating Sam's words to himself.
You can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails.
Mr. Gray drifts off to sleep, a peaceful expression on his face. Mr. Gray encounters various challenges in the village: a broken cart, a lost sheep, a rainy day. In each situation, he pauses, takes a deep breath, and adjusts his attitude. Slowly, he begins to smile more often, finding joy in small things, like a warm fire or a child's laughter. Mr. Gray is seen helping his neighbors with a smile, sharing Sam's wisdom with them. The villagers notice the change in him and begin to adopt a similar mindset, spreading happiness throughout the village. The bustling village square, where people are laughing, talking, and enjoying each other's company. Mr. Gray is now at the center of a small group of villagers, telling them a story with a broad smile on his face. Sam approaches and listens in, smiling to himself.
And that's when I realized, happiness isn't about waiting for life to be perfect. It's about finding the good in every day, no matter how small.
The villagers applaud and thank Mr. Gray for his wisdom. As they disperse, Sam walks up to Mr. Gray.
You're spreading happiness, Mr. Gray. The whole village seems brighter now.
Thanks to you, Sam. You taught me that happiness is a choice we make every day. I'm just passing it on.
Sam and Mr. Gray standing together, looking over the cheerful village.
Life will always have its challenges, but it's how we choose to face them that makes all the difference.
Their smiling faces, the village bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. Happiness is not about having a perfect life, but about choosing to see the good in every situation. Always be happy. Soar beyond the mountain. Kian 12 sits at a wooden table in a dimly lit room, reading an old, tattered book. His mother, Maria, prepares breakfast while his father, Arin, sharpens tools by the fireplace.
Kian, it's time to get ready for work. The crops won't tend to themselves.
Just a minute, Mom. I'm reading about these explorers who climbed the tallest mountains. They crossed oceans, too.
Books are one thing. Reality's another. There's no time for dreaming when you've got work to do. Stick to what's safe.
Kian slowly closes the book, his fingers lingering on the pages. He sighs and places it on the table.
But I know I can do something more, Dad. I just feel it.
Everyone feels like that at your age, son. But life has a way of showing us where we belong.
Kian runs up the hillside, his breath heavy but determined. He reaches the top of a cliff, his secret spot. From here, he watches eagles flying high above the village, their wings spread wide against the backdrop of the mountains.
One day, I'll be up there too.
Sorry 12's, Kian's best friend, appears, catching up to him.
Still watching the eagles, huh? You're always up here alone.
They're free, sorry. Nothing holds them back. I want to be like them.
People aren't eagles, Kian. We've got responsibilities. Besides, no one's ever climbed those mountains before.
That doesn't mean it can't be done.
Kian stands in the village square, surrounded by a small group of villagers. He's animated, speaking about his dream to climb the tallest mountain. The villagers exchange doubtful glances.
Climb the mountain? Kian, you are just a boy. No one in this village has ever done that. It's dangerous. Foolish, even.
But no one's tried. How can we know unless we try?
The villagers shake their heads, laughing softly. Kian's father, Arin, approaches, overhearing the conversation.
Don't fill his head with nonsense, Kian. You've got a good life here. There's no need to risk it for some fantasy.
Kian's face falls, but he looks up at the towering mountain in the distance. The seed of doubt in his heart is overshadowed by the spark of determination in his eyes. Kian sits alone outside, the stars twinkling above. He holds a small, hand-drawn map of the mountain, planning his journey.
I can't stay here forever. If I don't try, I'll never know what's out there.
He hears footsteps behind him and turns to see Sari, carrying a small lantern.
You're really going to do it, aren't you?
Kian nods, not needing to say a word.
You're stubborn, Kian. Just promise me you'll come back.
I will.
Kian, with a small pack slung over his shoulders, stands at the base of the mountain. The sky is painted with the first light of dawn. He takes a deep breath and begins his ascent. As Kian climbs, the terrain becomes more treacherous. He stumbles at times, but each fall only fuels his determination.
I can do this. I just have to keep moving.
Kian reaches a plateau and collapses, exhausted. His hands are scraped, and his clothes torn from the journey. He looks down at the village far below, tiny and distant.
Maybe they were right. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe I should turn back.
Kian closes his eyes, leaning against a rock, but as he sits in silence, he hears the cry of an eagle soaring above him. He opens his eyes, watching the eagle glide effortlessly through the sky.
No, I've come this far. I won't give up now.
After days of climbing, Kian finally reaches the summit. The view is breathtaking. Endless snow-capped mountains stretching into the horizon. He stands at the peak, looking down at the village that now seems so small. A tear of joy rolls down his cheek.
I made it.
The wind whips around him as he raises his arms to the sky, his heart filled with a sense of freedom and accomplishment. Kian returns to the village, weary but triumphant. The villagers gather, astonished at his return. His father, Arin, steps forward, his expression a mixture of pride and disbelief.
You really did it. You climbed the mountain.
Kian nods, his eyes filled with quiet pride.
It wasn't easy, but sometimes you have to trust yourself when no one else does.
Kian stands in the square, now surrounded by villagers who look at him with newfound respect. The young children stare at him in awe, while the older villagers nod in approval. Even the doubters seem inspired.
If Kian can climb that mountain, maybe we've been holding ourselves back too.
We've all been too afraid to take risks. He's shown us what's possible.
Kian, who smiles humbly. Sari steps forward, standing beside him.
You've changed this village, Kian.
I didn't change the village. I just showed everyone what we're capable of when we believe in ourselves.
Kian returns to his secret spot, where he once watched the eagles. This time, he sits with Sari by his side. They watch as an eagle soars high above, its wings spread wide.
So, what's next?
Kian grins, a spark of adventure still burning in his eyes.
Who knows? But whatever it is, I'm ready.
The eagle, soaring into the endless sky, symbolizing Kian's limitless future. Reach for the stars, Once upon a time, we see a young boy, Arin, sitting on a grassy hilltop overlooking a small, humble village nestled between towering mountains. The moon casts a faint glow, and the stars twinkle brightly in the sky. Arin gazes upward, lost in thought.
The stars always seemed so far away. Each night, I'd sit here, wondering, dreaming. I thought if I could just touch them, maybe, just maybe, I could find my way out of this place.
Arin's mother calls from a distance.
Arin, it's late, come home.
Coming, Ma.
Arin stands up slowly, giving the stars one last look before walking back down the hill.
But how could a boy like me, from a family with nothing, ever touch the stars?
Arin walks through the narrow village streets. The villagers are busy with their everyday chores. Arin's clothes are simple, and his eyes constantly wander to the mountains.
There goes Arin, always dreaming. Poor kid, he'll never get out of here.
You can't blame him. He's got no future here.
The whispers followed me wherever I went. In their eyes, I was just another boy with dreams too big for my own good.
Arin walks past a group of kids playing, but he doesn't join. Instead, he heads back to the hill. Arin sits under the stars again, his face illuminated by the moonlight. This time, an old traveler approaches. The traveler carries a weathered bag and walks with a slight limp. He notices Arin staring into the sky.
You've been looking up there for quite some time, haven't you?
Arin, startled, looks at the traveler.
I just like the stars. They make me feel like there's something bigger out there.
There is. Much bigger than you can imagine. But what are you going to do about it?
Arin looks down, a mix of frustration and sadness in his eyes.
I want to explore the world, see what's beyond these mountains, but I'm poor. I don't have the means to leave. No one from here ever has.
The traveler smiles, sitting down beside Arin.
You think the stars are far away, don't you? But they're not unreachable. Every journey, even one to the stars, starts with a single step.
Arin looks at him, puzzled but intrigued.
A single step?
Yes, a single step. What you lack in wealth, you can make up for in determination. It's not where you start, it's how far you're willing to go.
His words hung in the air. I had never thought about it that way. Maybe I could do something, anything.
The traveler gets up, nodding to Arin before walking off into the night. Arin remains, staring at the stars, now with renewed purpose in his eyes. Arin begins working odd jobs in the village, helping with farming, fixing roofs, carrying goods. We see a montage of Arin working tirelessly, saving every coin he earns. The villagers watch him, some scoffing, others with mild curiosity.
What's that boy up to now? Always working. Always dreaming.
He thinks he's going to change his fate. Foolish.
Arun overhears but doesn't stop working. Sweat on his brow, but determination in his heart.
It wasn't easy. They didn't believe in me. But I didn't need them to. I just needed to believe in myself.
Arun, now a young man, stands at the entrance of a bustling city. His clothes are worn, but his eyes are filled with awe and wonder. He walks through the city streets, taking in the towering buildings and busy crowds. His steps are filled with purpose.
It took years, but I finally made it. With the money I saved, I enrolled in school. I studied harder than anyone, knowing that this was my single step toward reaching the stars.
We see Arun studying late into the night, working part-time jobs, and attending classes. He faces many challenges, failing exams, struggling with loneliness, but he never gives up. Every time he falters, he remembers the traveler's words.
It's not where you start, it's how far you're willing to go.
Arun, now a successful engineer, returns to the village. He's dressed well, but there's a humility about him. The villagers gather around as he stands on the same hilltop where he once dreamed of the stars.
Is that Arun? He's done it.
I can't believe it. He really made something of himself.
Arun looks out at the crowd, smiling. The stars twinkle overhead, just like they did when he was a boy.
When I was younger, I thought the stars were too far away for someone like me to ever reach them. But I learned something important. No dream is too big if you take the first step, and never stop moving forward. And just like that, I had reached the stars.
Arun sits once more under the stars, but this time with a peaceful smile. He gazes upward, knowing now that anything is possible.
I still come here, looking at the stars. But now, I know, they're not out of reach. They never were.
Your journey to the stars begins with a single step. Never stop moving forward. The bracelet of life lessons. Once upon a time, we open in a small, cozy home in a quiet village. The sun streams through the window, casting a warm glow on a wooden table where a mother, Mrs. Evans, in her late 40s, sits. Across from her is Lily, a bright-eyed, curious girl in her late teens. Mrs. Evans carefully pulls out an old, leather bracelet from a wooden box.
Lily, before you go on your journey, there's something I want to give you. What's this, Mom? Hands Lily the bracelet. It is simple but beautiful, adorned with colorful beads of different sizes. Lily inspects it with curiosity. This bracelet has been in our family for generations. Each bead represents a lesson life has taught us. Before you set off on your adventure, I want to share these lessons with you.
Lily looks up at her mother, intrigued. Mrs. Evans reaches across the table and points to the first bead, a glowing amber one.
This amber bead, it stands for courage. Life will give you challenges that seem too big, too scary. But true courage, Lily, isn't about never being afraid. It's about moving forward, even when you're scared.
Lily runs her fingers across the smooth amber bead. absorbing the meaning. Mrs. Evans smiles and points to the next bead, a gentle blue one.
This one. It's for kindness pauses wherever you go. Whoever you meet, always remember to be kind. You never know the battles someone else is fighting. People may forget your words, or your actions, but they will never forget how you made them feel.
Lily nods, her eyes fixed on the bracelet. The next bead, a bright green one, catches her attention.
This green bead is for patience. Life won't always move at the pace you want. Smiling, believe me, I've learned that the hard way. But sometimes waiting, being patient, that's where the real growth happens.
Mrs. Evans pauses, watching her daughter take it in. Then she points to a vibrant red bead.
This red one is for passion. Never lose your fire, Lily. Chase what sets your soul alight. You have such a light in you, and the world needs it.
Lily smiles, her heart warmed by her mother's words. Mrs. Evans gently moves her finger to a silver bead.
This silver bead stands for forgiveness. Softly you'll be hurt along the way, by others, maybe even by yourself. But holding on to anger will only weigh you down. Forgive, not because others always deserve it, but because your heart deserves peace.
Lily takes a deep breath, visibly moved. Mrs. Evans points to a small white bead next.
And this one is for gratitude. Life will give you beautiful moments, but also difficult ones. Be grateful for both. The highs and lows shape you in ways you can't imagine.
Lily turns the bracelet over in her hands, reflecting on the lessons. Finally, her mother's hand rests on the last bead, a clear crystal.
This last bead, it's for love. Love is the most powerful force in the world. It will guide you, heal you, and give your life meaning. Love, no matter how much it hurts sometimes, is always worth it.
Lily's eyes glisten with tears. She reaches across the table and squeezes her mother's hand, both women sharing a quiet, emotional moment.
I'll never forget this, Mom.
You won't have to. The bracelet will remind you. And when you're ready, you'll add your own bead, with your own lesson.
Lily nods, her heart full. She stands up and embraces her mother tightly, holding onto the wisdom she's been given. We see Lily walking down a dirt path, her backpack slung over her shoulder. The bracelet dangles from her wrist, catching the sunlight. She looks at it as she walks, each bead reminding her of the lessons her mother shared. Lily, now a bit older, navigates the bustling streets of a big city. She faces challenges, getting lost, making mistakes at work, dealing with difficult people, but every time, she pauses and looks at her bracelet. She touches the amber bead for courage before facing her fears head-on. She touches the blue bead for kindness when she's frustrated with a stranger. We see her growing stronger, wiser with each day. Years later, we find Lily sitting on a park bench, the bracelet still on her wrist. This time, she has a child, a little girl about 5 years old, playing nearby. Lily watches her daughter with a soft smile, and then, pulling a small pouch from her pocket, she removes a new bead, a deep purple one. She gently adds the bead to her bracelet. Lily sits with her now older daughter, much like she had with her mother. The bracelet is on the table between them, the new purple bead shining brightly.
This bead, my dear, is for resilience. Life will knock you down, but it's how you get back up that truly matters.
Her daughter listens intently, her eyes wide with admiration.
Will you teach me all the other lessons too?
Lily smiles, her heart full.
Yes, sweetheart. One by one, just like my mother did for me.
As they sit together, the bracelet a symbol of the passing wisdom, love, and strength from generation to generation. The journey of two sisters.
Once upon a time, a picturesque village surrounded by towering trees and lush greenery. Birds are chirping, and villagers go about their daily activities. In the center of the village, a large wooden board stands, displaying the announcement of a grand challenge.
In a quiet village nestled between the forest and the mountains, lived two sisters, Lila, the thoughtful and patient one, and Nia, the energetic dreamer. The sisters are sitting around the table, looking at the announcement pinned to the board. Their parents sit nearby, watching them with pride and concern.
This challenge won't be easy, Nia. The forest is vast, and the mountain is treacherous.
That's exactly why we have to go for it. Think about it, Lila, if we win, we'll be known as heroes. And the greatest teacher in the land will be waiting for us at the mountain's peak.
But we can't just rush in. We have to be prepared, or the forest will defeat us before we even begin.
You worry too much. I'm going to leave at dawn tomorrow. The faster I get through the forest, the better.
Lila, I'll take a few days to plan my path and gather what I need. I'm sure it will be worth the wait.
The next morning, Nia stands at the village gate with a small pack of supplies. She waves goodbye to her family and villagers. Nia.
I'll bring that flower back before you even have time to miss me.
She turns and dashes toward the forest, excitement fueling her steps. The village slowly fades behind her as she disappears into the trees. Nia, filled with confidence, believed that speed was the key to victory. Lila, however, took a different approach. Lila sits at the table with a map of the forest, studying it carefully. She traces her finger along the routes, occasionally taking notes and making sure she understands the terrain.
The river cuts through here. The animals tend to stay around this area. I'll need to pack enough food for at least a week.
Nia is sprinting through the dense trees, barely pausing to catch her breath. Her face is full of excitement as she leaps over roots and ducks under branches.
This is easier than I thought. No problem at all.
Suddenly, her foot catches on a hidden root, and she tumbles to the ground. She winces, sitting up and brushing dirt off her knees.
Okay, maybe it's a little harder than I thought.
She picks herself up and continues running. Soon, she encounters a wide river blocking her path.
Oh, I didn't think there'd be a river. How am I supposed to get across?
She tries to wade through, but the current is strong, and she stumbles back, frustrated.
I don't have time for this.
She circles the river, trying to find a shallow point, but her time slips away. Meanwhile, Lila has just started her journey. She walks steadily, calmly navigating the forest. With each step, she's careful, avoiding roots and overhanging branches.
Patience, Lila, one step at a time.
As she approaches the river, she smiles knowingly. She already found the shallowest part of the river on her map. She wades through easily, her feet barely touching the water. While Nia rushed ahead without a plan, Lila moved slowly but with purpose, knowing that the forest rewarded those who respected its challenges. Nia is exhausted, slumped against a tree, staring up at the night sky. The sounds of the forest seem louder now, almost menacing.
I thought I'd be halfway up the mountain by now. How did this happen?
She pulls out a small piece of bread and takes a frustrated bite, her supplies dwindling. Lila sits by a small campfire, content and focused. She unrolls her pack, eating a well-prepared meal while looking at the stars. The peaceful sounds of the forest surround her.
The journey is long, but I'm getting closer. One day at a time.
After days of struggle, both sisters approach the foot of the mountain. Nia, looking haggard and tired, has barely made it through the forest. She stares at the mountain, her face a mixture of frustration and determination.
I can still win this.
She begins climbing, but her body is weary and her steps are slow. Each rock she pulls herself up on feels like a mountain itself.
I was supposed to be the fastest. Why is this so hard?
Meanwhile, Lila reaches the foot of the mountain, calm and steady. Her supplies are still plentiful, her body well rested.
Almost there.
She begins her climb, each movement calculated and sure. Despite the steepness, she makes progress, her energy conserved from her thoughtful journey through the forest. At the top of the mountain stands a single rare flower, blooming in the wind. Nia reaches the peak, her hands trembling as she touches the flower. But before she can pluck it, she collapses to the ground, too exhausted to celebrate. Moments later, Lila arrives at the peak. She walks over to Nia and kneels beside her.
You pushed too hard, Nia. You tried to win before you even understood the journey.
Nia looks up, tears in her eyes.
I thought being fast would get me here first. I thought I could just do it.
Lila helps her sister up, and together, they look at the flower.
It's not always about being first. Sometimes, it's about learning as you go, pacing yourself, and appreciating the journey itself.
They stand together, side by side, as Lila picks the flower. In the end, the sisters learned that the race wasn't about who was fastest, but who understood the value of patience, wisdom, and perseverance.
The sisters return to the village, carrying the flower between them. Villagers cheer as they arrive, and the sisters smile at each other.
Next time, I'll try to keep up with you, Lila.
And I'll try to keep a little more of your energy, Nia.
And so, the two sisters, once so different, found balance in each other's strengths, realizing that life's greatest journey is learning to combine wisdom and passion, patience and action. A young boy's journey to happiness. Once upon a time, in a small village tucked away between the mountains, there lived a young boy named Arin. He was curious about everything, always asking questions about the world around him. Arin, walking through the village, looking around with wide, curious eyes.
There's so much to know. How can I live a happy and fulfilling life?
Arin looks toward a hill where an old man's cottage sits. He smiles and starts walking toward it. Arin reaches the cottage of an old wise man named Samuel, who sits on a rocking chair, gazing at the village below. Samuel smiles warmly as Arin approaches.
Samael, how can I live a happy and fulfilling life?
Samuel chuckles softly and gestures for Arin to sit beside him.
Ah, that is a question many ask. But let me tell you 3 stories instead.
The Farmer and the Bamboo Tree. A farmer is seen planting a small seed into the ground.
Years ago, a farmer planted a bamboo tree. For the first year, he watered and nurtured it, but nothing grew above the soil.
The farmer continues watering through different seasons, looking frustrated but persistent.
The second year came, and still, no growth. Frustrated, his friends told him to give up.
The farmer shakes his head at his friend's advice and keeps watering.
He didn't give up. Then, in the 5th year, the bamboo sprouted and grew over 90 feet tall within weeks.
The bamboo suddenly shoots up to the sky, towering over everything. The farmer smiles, amazed.
The tree was building strong roots beneath the ground, preparing for its rapid growth. The farmer learned that patience often leads to extraordinary results. Sometimes, progress isn't visible, but perseverance will eventually lead to growth.
The Bricklayers. 2 men are laying bricks, building something.
One day, a traveler came to the village and saw 2 men laying bricks.
A traveler walks up to the first bricklayer, who is sweating and looks weary.
What are you doing?
First bricklayer. I'm laying bricks to earn a living. The traveler moves to the second bricklayer, who is working with a smile on his face. Traveler, and you? What are you doing? Second bricklayer. I'm building a cathedral that will inspire generations. As the second man speaks, the outline of a beautiful cathedral begins to take shape behind him in an imaginative sequence.
Though both men were doing the same task, one saw it as a burden, while the other saw it as a purpose. How you perceive your work can change your experience of it.
The Fox and the Bird. A small bird lies injured on the ground, unable to fly. A fox prowls nearby and spots the bird.
In a nearby forest, A small bird was hurt and couldn't fly.
The fox approaches the bird, sniffing curiously. The bird flinches, expecting the worst.
A fox found the bird and could have easily made a meal of it.
Instead of attacking, the fox gently picks the bird up and carries it to a safe spot. Days pass as the fox feeds and protects the bird, who slowly starts to recover.
But instead, the fox nursed the bird back to health, sharing its food and keeping it safe from predators.
The bird eventually spreads its wings and flies away. The fox watches it go, looking a bit sad but content. Later, the bird returns, carrying food for the fox.
When the bird could fly again, it left. But every year, it returned with food for the fox, repaying the kindness shown to it.
The bird drops food at the fox's feet, and the two share a quiet moment of friendship.
Acts of kindness, no matter how small, often come back in ways you don't expect.
The hilltop cottage. Arin looks thoughtful as he processes Samuel's stories.
Life is much like these stories. Patience, perspective, and kindness will guide you through difficult times and help you lead a life of meaning.
Arin nods, understanding.
What matters isn't just what you do, but how you choose to approach it.
Arin walking back down the hill toward the village, the sun setting behind him. He looks confident, with a newfound sense of purpose. And so, Arin left with a new understanding of how to live his life. He learned that true happiness doesn't come from external success alone, but from the wisdom to navigate life's challenges with a kind heart and an open mind. Arin heads home, ready for the journey ahead, beyond the limits. Once upon a time, the sound of a school bell echoes through the small village school. A group of students working on an assignment. In the middle of the classroom sits Ibadat, 12's, a quiet boy, struggling with his math problems. His classmates exchange knowing glances, whispering to each other.
Look at him, he's always struggling.
He'll never make it to high school, let alone become a doctor like he say.
Ibadat overhears the whispers. His face tightens, but he remains silent, staring at his math book. Mrs. Rahman, 35's, a kind and wise teacher, watches Ibadat from her desk. She notices his struggles, but also sees the determination in his eyes. She quietly walks over to his desk and kneels beside him.
Ibadat, can I see your work?
Ibadat nods hesitantly, handing her the paper. Mrs. Rahman reviews it, then looks up at him with a gentle smile.
You're close, Ibadat. I can see you're trying. How about we go over this together after school? You'll get it, I'm sure of it.
Ibadat looks at her, surprised. No teacher had ever offered him extra help before.
Really? You don't mind?
Of course not. Sometimes we all just need a little more time. You've got a lot of potential, Ibadat. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Ibadat's face lights up with a glimmer of hope. He nods eagerly. The bell rings, signaling the end of the school day. Students scatter, laughing and chatting as they head home. Ibadat lingers, waiting nervously outside the school. Mrs. Rahman steps out of the building, carrying a stack of books.
Shall we begin?
Ibadat nods. They sit together on a bench under a tree, going over the math problems. Mrs. Rahman patiently explains each step, breaking it down in a way Ibadat can understand. The sun sets behind them as they work late into the afternoon. Ibadat test paper a few weeks later. His scores are improving, slowly but surely. He isn't at the top of the class, but his progress is evident. Mrs. Rahman stands at the front of the class, handing back test results.
Good work, Ibadat. Keep it up. Remember, it's about progress, not perfection.
Ibadat smiles, clutching his paper. Some students glance at him, their previous doubts slowly fading. For the first time, Ibadat feels a sense of pride. Several years have passed. Mrs. Rahman, now a bit older, is cleaning out her desk. The walls of the school office are filled with posters and pictures of past students. A knock is heard on the door. She looks up.
Come in.
The door opens, revealing Ibadat, now 25s, wearing a doctor's coat. His face is filled with joy as he steps inside. Mrs. Rahman stands in shock.
Mrs. Rahman, it's been a long time.
Tears well up in Mrs. Rahman's eyes as she recognizes the young man standing before her.
Ibadat, you did it. You became a doctor.
Ibadat nods, holding back tears of his own.
And I couldn't have done it without you. You believed in me when no one else did. You stayed after school with me, you taught me not to give up, and because of that, I'm here today.
Mrs. Rahman walks toward him, placing a hand on his shoulder.
It was always in you, Ibadat. I just helped you see it.
Ibadat stands at the podium, addressing the students and teachers of his former school. Mrs. Rahman sits in the front row, watching proudly.
When I was your age, I didn't believe in myself. I thought my dreams were too big. I thought I wasn't good enough. But there was one person who showed me that hard work and perseverance could take me anywhere I wanted to go. That person was my teacher, Mrs. Rahman.
Mrs. Rahman, wiping a tear from her cheek as she smiles.
She taught me that success isn't about being perfect from the start. It's about getting better, one step at a time. And that's what I want to tell all of you today. No matter how hard things seem, no matter how far away your dreams feel, don't ever give up. Believe in yourself, and find those who believe in you too.
The audience erupts in applause. Ibadat steps down from the podium. He looks at Mrs. Rahman, who nods, silently acknowledging their shared journey. As the sun sets over the village, Ibadat walks through the streets, past his old school. Ibadat's smiling as he looks back at the building where his journey began. He knows that no matter where life takes him, he'll always remember the teacher who changed everything. Don't hate your life. Once upon a time, the sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow over a quiet park. A gentle breeze rustles the leaves of towering oak trees, their shadows stretching across the well-worn pathways. Birds chirp softly, and the distant laughter of children playing can be heard. Ibadat, a man in his early 30s, walks slowly along the path, hands shoved deep into his pockets. His face is a mixture of frustration and exhaustion. Though the park around him is peaceful, Ibadat is lost in his own turbulent thoughts. There was once a man named Ibadat. To the outside world, he seemed to have everything: a good job, a caring family, friends who supported him. But inside, Ibadat felt empty. Ibadat stops near a small pond, staring blankly at the water. He watches as ducks glide effortlessly across the surface, their lives seemingly uncomplicated. Life had become a routine, a series of endless days where nothing seemed to change, and every morning felt heavier than the last. He began to believe that his life, full of missed opportunities and disappointments, was somehow less than others. And so, Ibadat walked, searching for something, anything, that could help him make sense of it all. Ibadat turns a corner and notices an elderly man sitting alone on a park bench. The man, with a kind face and weathered hands, is watching the trees sway in the breeze. A peaceful smile plays across his lips. Ibadat hesitates for a moment, but his frustration compels him to sit down beside the man.
I hate my life. I feel like I'm stuck. Nothing ever seems to go my way.
The old man turns his head slightly, studying Ibadat with gentle eyes. He doesn't speak right away, as though weighing his response.
You see those trees over there?
Ibadat follows the man's gaze. A cluster of tall, sturdy oaks stand before them, their leaves rustling in the wind.
They've been standing there for decades, maybe longer. Through storms, droughts, and every season imaginable. Do you think they ever complain about the harsh winds or cold winters?
Ibadat frowns, slightly annoyed.
They're just trees. My life is more complicated than that.
The old man chuckles softly, nodding as though he understands Ibadat's frustration.
Indeed. Life is complicated. But in a way, we're not so different from those trees. Like them, we grow bit by bit, season by season. We go through storms, droughts, and moments of stillness. But the thing about trees is, they never stop growing. Even in the harshest conditions.
That's easy for you to say. It's not like you're living my life.
The old man doesn't take offense. Instead, he leans back on the bench, his eyes still fixed on the trees.
True. I'm not living your life. But I've lived my own share of storms. And I've learned that the secret to getting through them isn't in wishing for an easier path. It's in understanding that every storm, every difficult day, is shaping you, helping you grow, just like the trees.
Ibadat's expression softens as the old man's words sink in. He watches the trees more closely now, noticing their sturdy trunks and branches that sway gracefully with the wind. A long silence stretches between them, interrupted only by the sounds of the park.
But I feel like I'm always falling behind. Everyone else seems to have it figured out.
The old man smiles knowingly.
We all feel that way sometimes. But comparing your life to others won't get you anywhere. Each of us has our own journey. Your path is unique, full of lessons that no one else can learn for you. Just because today is hard doesn't mean tomorrow won't bring something better.
Ibadat leans forward, elbows resting on his knees. His gaze drifts to the horizon as the sun begins to set, painting the sky with soft hues of orange and pink.
So, what should I do? Just wait for things to get better?
Not wait. Live. Take each day as it comes. Face your challenges head on, without letting them define you. Every struggle is part of your growth, and every day brings new possibilities.
Ibadat's shoulders relaxed slightly. He hadn't thought about it that way before. There's a quiet strength in the old man's words, an assurance that Ibadat can't help but find comforting.
Don't hate your life, son. It's the only one you have, and within it lies the potential for greatness. Even the darkest nights eventually give way to dawn.
Ibadat looks at the old man, gratitude filling his eyes.
Thank you. I think I needed to hear that.
The old man gives a slow nod, his eyes twinkling with a quiet wisdom.
We all need reminders from time to time. You're stronger than you think. Don't forget that.
Ibadat walks away from the bench, the old man's words echoing in his mind. The park is now bathed in twilight, but something in Ibadat feels lighter, as though a weight has been lifted. As he exits the park, he pauses for a moment, turning back to where the old man sat. But the bench is empty now. Ibadat smiles to himself, taking a deep breath of the cool evening air. The path ahead still holds uncertainty, but for the first time in a long while, Ibadat feels ready to face it. Ibadat realized that while life had its struggles, it was also full of small victories, moments of joy, and opportunities for growth. He decided to stop focusing on what he lacked and began appreciating what he had. Ibadat walks with a new sense of purpose, his steps no longer heavy with frustration. The sounds of the city surround him, the hum of traffic, the distant murmur of conversations. And yet, Ibadat feels at peace. The lesson is simple. Don't hate your life. Every struggle is a part of your growth, and every day brings new possibilities. You're stronger than you think, and your story is still unfolding. As Ibadat disappears into the bustling night, the city lights flicker around him. His journey continues, and though the road ahead may not always be easy, he walks it with hope and determination. God's plan often in the most surprising ways. Once upon a time, the sun rises over a peaceful village. We hear the sounds of birds chirping and see a young man, Amir, late 20s, packing a worn-out suitcase. He takes a deep breath, looking around at the humble home where he grew up.
I've always known this village wasn't where I was meant to stay. Ever since I was a kid, I dreamed of bigger things. The city, a career, success.
He closes the suitcase, determination in his eyes. He steps out of the house, where his mother 50s waits on the porch.
You're really going, huh?
It's time, Ma. The city's waiting for me.
She pulls him into a tight hug.
Remember, no matter how far you go, you'll always have a home here.
I'll be back before you know it. And I'll bring you something nice from the city.
They both laugh. Amir kisses her on the forehead and walks toward a waiting bus. Amir boards the bus. He glances back at his mother one last time, waves, and steps inside. Amir sits by the window, watching the landscape roll by. His face is filled with hope and excitement. He pulls out his phone, looking at a job offer from a prestigious company.
This is it. My big break. Everything's about to change.
Suddenly, the bus lurches to a stop. Amir's head jerks forward. He looks around, confused.
What's going on?
Bus broke down. We're miles from the city. Gonna be a while.
Are you serious? I have a job interview in 3 hours.
Amir jumps out of the bus, frustrated, and begins pacing. Around him, other passengers complain, but there's nothing they can do. Amir walks down a dusty road, his frustration clear on his face. He stumbles upon a small town with old buildings and narrow streets. He looks around, unimpressed.
This is the last place I want to be.
He stops in front of a small cafe, tired and hungry. A kind old man 70s notices him from the doorway.
You look like you've been walking for hours. Come in, have something to eat.
I don't have much time. My bus broke down, and I've got somewhere important to be.
Son, the bus isn't going anywhere tonight. Might as well get comfortable.
Amir sighs and steps inside the cafe. Amir sits at a table, eating a simple meal. The kind old man sits across from him, sipping tea.
Where are you headed?
The city. I have a job interview. Big company, great opportunity. But now, I don't even know if I'll make it.
Funny how life works sometimes. You think you know where you're headed, and then plans change.
Amir looks out the window at the small, quiet town.
This isn't what I planned.
Sometimes the best things in life aren't planned.
Amir doesn't respond, but his expression softens slightly.
The next day, Amir walks around the town. The bus still hasn't been fixed. As he passes through the town square, he sees a group of children playing and notices a school in disrepair. A group of locals are working together, trying to rebuild it.
We're almost done. Just need a little more help.
Amir watches for a moment, then something pulls at him. He walks over, despite himself.
Need an extra pair of hands?
Always. Grab a hammer.
Amir helps rebuild the school, sweating but smiling as he works alongside the locals. He gets to know the townspeople, sharing stories, laughing, and working together. He teaches some of the kids math and reading, discovering a side of himself he never knew existed. After a long day of work, Amir sits on a bench, looking up at the stars. The kind old man joins him.
You've been busy.
I guess I've been trying to make the most of my time here.
You see? You didn't plan to stay, but look at what you've done. This town. It needed someone like you.
Maybe I needed this town, too.
The kind old man looks at Amir, his eyes twinkling with wisdom.
God's plan isn't always clear, son. But it's always the right one.
Amir imagines the corporate life he thought he wanted. The suits, the meetings, the rush. It feels cold and distant now. Amir watches as the children play in the newly rebuilt schoolyard. He smiles, his heart full. Weeks later, Amir returns to his village. His mother greets him on the porch again.
You're back sooner than I thought.
Turns out, I wasn't meant for the city after all.
She hugs him tightly, a proud smile on her face. Amir, now older, walks through the small town he once stumbled upon. The town has grown and thrived because of his efforts. A plaque on the rebuilt school reads, "In honor of Amir, who built dreams with his hands."
Sometimes, life doesn't take us where we want to go. It takes us where we're needed. And in the end, that's the real journey.
Amir walks down the road, content with where life has led him. God's plan often unfolds in the most surprising ways. Trust the journey, even when it takes unexpected turns. How to stop overthinking. Once upon a time, Arin, a young man in his early 20s, sits by a flickering candle. The room is cluttered with papers, books, and small trinkets. His brow is furrowed in deep thought as he stares at the ceiling. His hands tremble as he fidgets with a quill, muttering to himself,
"What if I choose wrong? What if I fail? What if LLI?"
He rubs his face in frustration, overwhelmed by his thoughts.
I can't stop thinking. Every choice feels like a trap. Every decision a burden. Why can't my mind just rest?
Arin, looking tired and anxious, sits at a table with a friend. They drink quietly for a moment.
You've been like this for weeks, Arin. What's wrong?
I can't stop overthinking. Every little thing, every choice, it's like I'm paralyzed. I feel like my mind is stuck in a loop.
You need help. Real help.
The friend leans in closer, speaking softly.
There's a fakir. He lives on the mountain. People say he has wisdom that can solve any problem. Maybe he can help you find some peace.
Arin trudges up the rocky path. The wind howls, and sweat drips down his face. The journey is exhausting, but he pushes forward, his face set with determination. Arin finally reaches the monastery, a peaceful, ancient building set against the backdrop of the towering mountains. The sound of a nearby river echoes softly through the air. Arin approaches an old fakir sitting cross-legged on a rock by the river. The monk has a serene expression, his eyes closed, as if he's one with the world around him. Arin hesitates, unsure how to proceed, but then he steps forward.
Master, please, I need your help.
The fakir slowly opens his eyes, gazing at Arin with a calm, welcoming smile. The fakir gestures for Arin to sit beside him. They both sit facing the river, the water flowing peacefully.
You've come far, young man. What troubles you?
Arin takes a deep breath, trying to find the words.
My mind, it's always racing. I think about every decision over and over again. I can't stop worrying. I overthink everything. It's exhausting, and I don't know how to make it stop.
The fakir nods, listening patiently. After a beat, he gestures toward the flowing river.
Look at the river, Arin. Do you see how it flows, without resistance? No matter the rocks or obstacles in its path, it moves forward, always continuing its journey.
Arin watches the river, but his expression is still confused.
What does that have to do with me?
Your thoughts are like this river. If you try to control every drop of water, to hold it back or stop its flow, you will fail. And in your failure, you will only create more frustration for yourself.
The fakir picks up a small pebble from the ground, holding it in his hand.
Imagine this pebble is one of your thoughts.
He offers the pebble to Arin, who takes it cautiously.
Hold it tight. Squeeze it in your hand.
Arin clenches the pebble tightly, his knuckles turning white.
Now tell me, how does it feel?
It's uncomfortable. My hand feels tense.
Exactly. When you cling to your thoughts, your worries, they become heavier than they truly are. You exhaust yourself by holding on too tightly.
The fakir points to the river again.
Now, let it go.
Arin hesitates, then slowly opens his hand, letting the pebble fall into the river with a soft splash. He watches it disappear beneath the water, carried away by the current.
Do you see? The pebble is gone, and your hand is free. This is the way of the mind, Arin. Thoughts will come and go like the water in this river. If you hold on to them too tightly, they will weigh you down. But if you let them flow, without trying to control every single one, you will find peace.
Arin stares at the river, the weight of the lesson sinking in.
But how do I let go of the thoughts that haunt me? The ones that feel so important, so overwhelming?
Letting go is not about forgetting, but about accepting. Accept that some things are beyond your control. Life will happen, with or without your worry. Trust the flow of the river. Trust the flow of your mind. The more you resist, the more you'll suffer. But if you accept, you'll find the calm beneath the current.
Arin walks down the mountain path, the golden light of the setting sun illuminating his face. He looks more peaceful now, the tension in his features eased. He picks up a small pebble from the ground and examines it, a slight smile forming on his lips. He tosses it into the air and watches it land softly beside the path.
I cannot control the river, nor should I let it flow, and I'll flow with it.
Arin returns to his village, walking through the quiet streets. The sky above is filled with stars, and the sound of the river echoes softly in the distance. He passes by the tavern, where his friend stands outside, looking surprised to see him.
Arin, you look different. What happened?
Arin smiles, looking up at the stars.
I learned to let go.
The peaceful river by the monastery, where the fakir sits alone, gazing at the stars reflecting on the water. He smiles softly to himself, then closes his eyes in peaceful meditation, the river's gentle flow filling the air. Arin's journey from anxiety and overthinking to finding peace through the wisdom of the fakir and the metaphor of the flowing river.